Hi everyone, and welcome to my long overdue video about surrogacy. Today I'm going to talk about everything that I went through. I'm going to talk about the ups, the downs, the behind the scenes, things that just nobody talks about when it comes to pregnancy. And there's a lot of unspoken things about it, especially, after pregnancy, like what happens afterwards, because a lot of people are like, oh, the baby's born and you're a month postpartum and you look phenomenal, but there's so much more behind everything that you see as like an outsider that nobody talks about, especially women don't really share the things that they're experiencing. And to be a surrogate, you have so much you have to endure. There's so much that happens that nobody talks about. All they want to talk about is, yeah, I got pregnant and I helped a family, good job, yay. But that's not it. There's a lot more. And I think that in order to shed some light upon surrogacy, I should really share my story, because it is a crazy roller coaster of an experience that I had, and everyone's always gonna have something different. The next person can have a different experience than me. Someone can have a worse experience than me. Someone can have the better experience, but everyone's different. So I wanted to share my opinion and my thoughts and my feelings. So I really hope you guys like it.
By my side right now. Yeah.
Alright guys, so today I'm going to go ahead and just start off with the very beginning, the whole start of everything. So the way I came across surrogacy is I actually used to work at a furniture store, and I met a woman. She was pregnant and I was congratulating her, and I was so happy for her because I like pregnancy is a beautiful thing. So whenever I see pregnant women, I get all, oh, like I kind of want to touch the belly and stuff. So, I said congratulations, and two men had walked up and they informed me that she was a surrogate. And I was really intrigued because I've heard of them, but I've never actually met somebody. So I got to talking to her and the couple that she was helping, and I was blown away by it all. So I ended up going home later that night, and I did a lot of research and I looked into it, and I found it to be like this whole other world that nobody talks about. I mean, you hear about people saying that they're trying, or there's people that don't want kids, and then every so often you hear people saying like, oh, we're not having any luck, I can't have kids. But they really leave it at that. You don't think of all the other options people have to try to start a family. And you hear them doing things for themselves, taking hormones and going through like these things to get themselves, themselves pregnant. But you don't think of the outside options as far as having a kid. So I looked into it and I was so like intrigued by it. So I talked to Ruben about it, and I was like, hey, like, hear me out. Like, I've been looking into this, and I laid it all out there for him, because him and we both come from families that have stepdads, but we don't refer to them as stepdads. They are our fathers. Those are our fathers, period. And unfortunately, my dad never had kids of his own. He took on 3 kids and raised them and loved them as his own, but he never had his own. And to see somebody like my dad, like that always bothered me, because there are really good people out there that deserve to have kids. So I was just like, if there's other people out there like my dad that deserve to have kids, they just can't do it. Like, I want to help them. Like, they deserve to have families, because you know what? There are some people out there that have kids that should not have kids. And we could agree to disagree, but that's that. So I wanted to help the people that genuinely deserved it. So, it took some time, but he finally came around to it and he agreed. I did a bunch of research. I looked at several agencies, did comparing, and I found one that I really liked, and I did the online application and I submitted it. I think 24 or 48 hours later I got a phone call You know, they were doing like an over the phone interview with me. They were asking me a bunch of questions, you know, some things that I answered online, they needed like more in-depth answers. So, you know, we talked and they really liked me. About 2 weeks after that, I had an at-home visit. They came to my house. They, you know, inspected everything, making sure that where I live was safe, it was appropriate. You know, I had a bed to sleep in, I had food, you know, healthy food. My daughter had a safe environment, because those are the rules. In order to be a surrogate, you have to have at least one kid, and you have to be taking care of that one kid, and you have to be over the age of 21. So you can't be, you know, 24, say you have one kid, but you know someone else is taking care of that kid. No, you have to be raising your children or child in order to be a surrogate, and you have to be over the age of 21. When I enrolled, I was like a few months after I had turned 21. So luckily I fit everything perfectly. They liked me and I was selected. And what's unique about my experience is that I was picked for a specific family, and we tried so many times. They were from China, and we tried 3 times over the course of almost 2 years to, you know, get me pregnant. And it's not an easy process. You have to take hormone injections. That is another thing nobody really talks about with surrogacy, is you have to take hormone injections. I had to do it in the butt, and I had to do it every day, sometimes twice a day. Some women have to do the injections into their stomach area, or they have to do both. You have to take pills, you have to insert pills. You know, there's so many things you have to do, and it's different for each company. Each company or agency can have you doing it a different way. So yeah, so we tried for almost 2 years. And you know, I would get pregnant, but after like a week or two, by the time it was time for me to have my checkup, I would have lost the baby. And by the 3rd time, I had to stop. That was 2 years of complete stress on my body. You know, I was on hormones for almost 2 years. I was, you know, it took a strain on my relationship and my body. My weight was fluctuating, you know. Every time I would like go out to dinner, I had to carry around my pouch that had all my needles, all of my medication in it. I was literally at the Rainforest Cafe once with my family, and I set alarms on my phone to remind me, like every day at a specific time, I had to take my prenatals, take my shot, take my other shot, you know, do all these things. So even when I was out at dinner, you know, I'd have to get up and excuse myself and go into this restroom at a restaurant and give myself a shot in the butt. And that's something nobody talks about. Nobody discusses that. That's something nobody wants to tell people about. Like, oh yeah, excuse me, I need to go prick myself. You know, that's one of those things that are very, very overlooked. Let's see. So after 2 years, I had to take a break. I had to stop. The parents had to stop. You know, they invested so much time, so much money, and it just wasn't happening. So we agreed to part. I took about 6 months off for myself. It was just, I needed to allow my body to come back and just relax and get back into a balance. And then maybe early 2017, I reached out to the agency that I was with and told them, like, I'm ready, like, it's been some time, let's try this one more time. I'm gonna do it one more time. If not, then obviously for me it just wasn't meant to happen. So I reached out. This time it took a little longer. The first time it was like within a month. It was right away. This second time around, it took about 3, almost 4 months for them to match me with a couple. Everything that I'm gonna say, like IPs, I will go ahead and just, you know, explain it down here as to what each thing means. So IPs is considered intended parents or parents to be. So it took me about 3 or 4 months to get matched with some IPs. And once I was matched, then all the legal document had to be drawn up. In order to be a surrogate, especially even during the first time that I did it, you have to undergo physicals. You have to go get your whole body checked. Your spouse has to get his body checked. You have to make sure that you have no STDs, you and your spouse. If you want to be a surrogate, and I must emphasize on this, you do not have to be married. I repeat, you do not have to be married if you want to be a surrogate. You can be a single mother raising your kids and decide, hey, I want to be a surrogate. That is perfectly okay. As long as you're over the age of 21, you're raising your own kids, you have a safe environment that is provided to live in, and you have a job. And that's very, very important too. You have to have a job because a lot of companies don't want you to use this as a form of income. And you know, compensation is something that I'm not really going to discuss because you need to, like, it's a big deal to be compensated for the things that you have to go through, but I'm not personally going to discuss my compensation. That is something I'm not going to disclose. But yeah, if you have any questions about that, maybe we could speak privately, but I'm not going to put this out for discussion as far as, you know, on camera. But yes, so you don't have to be married to have kids. Your spouse, if you are married or you're living with your boyfriend or whoever, they have to be tested, just because at some point, you know, during the whole pregnancy, they need to make sure that the baby isn't going to be put into a dangerous situation. They want to make sure starting off you guys are healthy and clean, because if later on something was to be you know, if you were to be infected by something, that can actually cause a break in your contract and to become a huge legal issue. So, you know, just stay clean, use condoms. So yeah, so I had to redo all of that again for my second journey, and it took about 6 months and it took a while, but it finally came down to it. And the parents really wanted to have a baby, and they were like, hey, Ray, you know, we've tried so many times with you before, you know, doing one embryo. They never stuck, or they never stayed. So this time around for this family, we're gonna do 2. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. You know, the odds of both of them staying are slim to none. So I go out for my procedure, I fall asleep, I wake up, you know, I'm impregnated. So you have to wait around 4 weeks after your procedure you have to wait 2 weeks to take a home test, but they usually make you wait anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks to go in and have your blood done, just because they want to make sure that the pregnancy hormone level is really high and it can be detected. They can see that it's in your blood. So yeah, I did a home pregnancy test about a week and a half later, because it's not as easy as it sounds. You really want to take this test, and you really, you know, you really want to know the results. You sit there and you're eager, and you could feel cramping, and you could feel like all these like uncomfortable, like your stomach's all bloated, and you just feel like, oh my god, and they tell you too, if you experience spotting, it's normal. That's the process during the implantation, when the embryo is basically sticking itself into your uterus and is attaching itself. You know, health lesson. So spotting is normal. A lot of women experience it just because, you know, it is an invasive procedure, so some women do tend to spot regardless. So I took on the test, said I was pregnant. I was like, yeah, I was so excited. Waited my, what is that, like 14 to 18 days, went into the doctors, and they, instead of taking my blood, they just did an ultrasound. And I remember I laid back, and they were getting ready to do the ultrasound, and I remember laying there like, oh my god, this is the moment of truth. Like, after this, if it didn't stick, I wasn't gonna do it anymore. Like, I couldn't handle continuously trying. So I lay down, and I closed my eyes, and you know, I can hear the doctor saying something, and I opened my eyes, and in the doctor's room there was the ultrasound tech, and then there's like a TV right in front of me where I was like laying down, and I closed my eyes and I looked, and my heart dropped, and I was like I couldn't breathe, and I was like, oh my god, it's twins. You can see the 2 little sacs in the ultrasound in these like little like a gummy bear thing, like they're just like these little things inside, jelly beans. And I was like, I'm having twins. How am I gonna have twins? How am I gonna do this? Like, it was exciting, but then like that excitement was completely overrun with like panic. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna have twins. How's my body gonna handle twins? I'm so small. I'm only like 5'5". At that time I was like 112 pounds. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. How am I gonna do this? Like, I started freaking out, you know. So the doctor gave me everything and was like, okay, see you in another, 3 weeks, because with twins it's a high risk pregnancy, so they have to see you a lot more often than when you have just a single baby. So I was at the doctor's office like every 2 to 3 weeks, and it was exhausting. So I told the family was ecstatic, and it was a really fun time. So told my family was excited. And you need a strong support system. If you want to be a surrogate, you need to have a really, really, really strong support system. Family, your friends that just support you, you can get through so much. And I was panicking. I told my family, and they were a little unsure too, but they were excited for me because they know how hard and how long I've been trying to do this. And yeah, so fast forward a little bit, I guess, because all you really do between finding out and then, I guess, up until you really start to get discomfort is you're eating. You have to eat healthy, because when you're pregnant with your own baby, you're very cautious. So as it being someone else's baby, I'm already like 10 times more cautious, because it's just like, this baby's in my hands. Like, I have to take care of it. If anything happens, like, I'm gonna let this family down. So I was like super cautious. I'm an avid tea drinker. I cut out all tea from my diet because I didn't want any of the certain herbs from my teas to have any effect on the babies. Like, I was freaking out. But that's just me. I overthink, I overanalyze, I overdo it a lot of the times. And that's not for everybody. Not everyone's gonna be like that. Once you're pregnant, especially being a surrogate, there's a lot of things that are covered within surrogacy. So after a certain point during the process, which this is another thing that's not talked about, is that during the first, I think it's 2 months, in the very, very beginning, the first 2 months, you are not allowed to have sex. It is to prevent pregnancy of your own. Then you're put on hormone injections, whether it's in the butt, in the stomach, however so. You have to take hormone injections for about, I think, well, you have to do it all the way from the very, very beginning up until about the second trimester to the middle of the second trimester. And you have to take it constantly. But you have to wait till the 12th week into that pregnancy to have sex. So overall, you can't have sex for anywhere up to 2 to 4 months. And that is a huge strain on a relationship. And that's why it's very key to have somebody that's very supportive and understanding and is willing to go through that with you. At some point in the pregnancy, I think it is 8 or 9 weeks in, once they confirm the heartbeat of the fetus, that is when your agreed upon compensation will start to be active. They need to make sure that you're almost to the point of the second trimester and everything is safe. That means you're out of the danger zone and the pregnancy is going to stick. So once that is confirmed, your agreed upon compensation will start active, and it is active every month. So you will get a portion at the beginning of the month, every single month, all the way up. I think it's a month or 2 after delivery. So it should equal up to 10 months. And that, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the money, but it starts once they confirm the fetal heartbeat. So once I was confirmed pregnant, I was eating healthy, taking care of myself. all the way up until about 6 months, I want to say. That's when everything started to really weigh on me. I started to get like really swollen feet. I was in a lot of pain. I had really bad back pain. Oh my gosh, my rib cage, I really felt like my rib cage was about to like break apart. It was the worst pain I have ever felt in my life. It was just like my ribs, like on the inside, were like pulling like out from the inside. And as a man, I don't think you'll ever fully understand what it's like to feel not two, but I'll just say one baby pushing on your rib cage, and you're kind of like, ugh. Like, oh, it hurts so bad. But imagine two of them up in there, and I have like one kicking on my backside, and then I have one like up in my rib cage, and then one's kicking straight down, and it's like you feel all these movements all at once, and it's so weird and it's so crazy, especially compared to one. So any of my natural mommies of twins, I give you so much props. So yeah, so around 6 months, I started having a lot of like issues. I started having spotting. I was having a lot of early contractions, and at that point in my life, I was under a lot of stress anyway. So it was kind of just building up to like straining on my body. And with twins, you have to go in to the hospital. You have to do what's called a stress test, and they're just monitoring the babies, and I had to do that once a week, every week for I think it was like 2 months, a month, 2 months, to just, you know, make sure my blood pressure was low, the heartbeats were okay, my resting heartbeat, their resting heartbeat, and all of that. So that was an experience. You know, they always had to check me, make sure I wasn't dilating, and stuff like that. Another thing nobody talks about, especially during pregnancy in general, is how invasive it is. You know, they have to physically check to see if you're dilating. And that is so weird and so uncomfortable. And you're laying flat on your back, and you have all this weight on your back, and you're like, I couldn't breathe. You know, I have 2 big babies sitting on me, and I'm like seeing spots, and like my heartbeat's racing, and they can see my blood pressure's rising, and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm on my back. And that is so important during pregnancies, to never lay on your back. You know, your main nerves, your main like everything runs through your spine, and if you lay on your back, your babies will press on that, and it can cause so many issues, and it can cause, especially the mom, a lot of pain. So, you know, that's a lot of things nobody wants to talk about. And the doctor that I had, they made it very clear that women that are pregnant with more than one baby have to have a C-section. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried a lot. Simply because I've never had surgery. I've never broken a bone. I've never had any form of invasive things done to me. I don't even like going to the dentist and they have to get in my mouth, let alone have like my whole lower half basically almost cut in half. So yeah, I was told I have to have a C-section. I was 1, too small to deliver both of them naturally. And 2, delivering twins naturally is a higher risk because of, you know, one baby can come out perfectly fine, but in the process of the second baby coming out, you know, the placenta could collapse, you know, all these things could like go wrong. So they didn't want to risk that. They didn't want to risk me delivering one, something happening to the other, and still rushing me into surgery anyways. So they might as well just cut that portion out and just have me go under regardless. And you know what? That's not for everyone. There have been so many women that deliver twins naturally, and I envy you women. You are some strong women. But women that deliver C-section wise, you are some of the most bravest, strongest, toughest. Like, I can't even fathom the amount of strength it takes, because I went through it once and I was like, nope, never again, never again, never again. So the women that have to constantly have that because that's the only option, my heart goes out to you. And I think you're overlooked so much, and you are appreciated for what you've gone through just so your kids can be out safe and healthy. So then it came down to like me being super big, and I will insert photos of me like while I was pregnant, because I was huge. I was a big pregnant woman, especially being my small petite self, and then I had like twins. So it was very interesting to watch myself grow and change, because when I had my daughter, I was still big, but I was still small at the same time. I was just all belly. And then when I had the twins, I was just all belly, but it was so much more. It was so big. So I will go ahead and post that picture right here of me when I had my big old belly towards the end. And yeah, and then I'll actually insert me before I got pregnant, so you know, the during and before and during pictures, you guys can get a feel for, you know, how much my body had changed. Down to like the last like month, and I kept having false labor. Well, my body kept trying to go into labor, and I had to stop it. They had to keep giving me shots, and I was being held at the hospital. I think I was held at the hospital like 3 times. To stop the labor because it was still really early. And I think with twins, full term is considered 36 weeks. And like I was in there at like 30 weeks, 34 weeks, like a week before. So like I was in there quite often. So they kept having to give me injections. And at one point it wasn't stopping. And they were like, all right, the babies are going to come sooner. They were getting ready to prep me for surgery. But then it ended up stopping. So I was released. And literally a week after that, I went in for my stress test to make sure like everything was okay, during which they monitor, you know, contractions. And she was like, oh, you're still contracting a little bit, but that's fine, we're just gonna let it go. I said, okay. Like I felt fine. I wasn't dilating, I wasn't doing anything at that point, and I had false experiences. So they were just like, go home. So I went home, and I had some pho, I don't want to mispronounce it, I do apologize, but I had some, and it was so good. And I remember sitting there thinking like, ugh, like here are these Braxton Hicks contractions, they're so uncomfortable. So they started happening, and I noticed that they were coming like every 20 minutes, which isn't uncommon. I mean, once it gets closer in time, that's when you have to be really cautious. So I was like, I told my boyfriend, I was like, look, I'm starting to get like really uncomfortable. I'm gonna go lay in bed. So I was like laying in bed, and normally when we lay in bed, you know, you head at the top, feet come down. But as weird as it is, I think because we lay in our spots so much, it kind of like sinks in. The only way I could start sleeping is if I laid the opposite way. So I was laying long ways or horizontal, whatever. I was laying the opposite way on the bed, and I was watching TV, and I remember laying there and I was so uncomfortable. And you know, Ruben came in and he was on FaceTime with his family, and it was a normal night, and I kept having them, but I didn't think much about it. And by this time it was maybe close to 10:30 at night, and the pain was so severe. It was so much. And he was just like, hey, let's go, like, do you want to go? And I was like, no, because they weren't they told me every 3 to 7 minutes apart. I would get one, and then 10 minutes later I'd get one, and then 15 minutes later I'd get one, and then 5 minutes later I'd get one. And then, you know, they were fluctuating. They weren't a consistent pattern. So I was just like, this isn't labor, like, it's just weird. And I was like, go to bed, you know, if I start to feel like I need to go to the hospital, I'll wake you up. And I felt horrible. I was like trying so hard. I was in the living room, and I was like on my couch, and I was like bending over, and I was like almost in tears. I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I think this is it. Like, I need to go to the hospital. Like, this hurts. By this time, it was like 2 in the morning. So I had managed to go pretty much all day, and I was like in utter pain. Like, everything hurt. So I like waddled myself into the room, and I was like, babe, like, this is it. I gotta go. Like, I can't. It hurts. So we had to drive 40 minutes to get to the hospital where I'm set to deliver. And the only reason why we had to drive 40 minutes is because, and here's another fact for you, not every hospital supports surrogacy. So my insurance company, they don't support surrogacy. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't support it. So I couldn't deliver there. I had to go an outside doctor or a hospital to deliver. So the only other one that was like super close to me was 40 minutes away in, I think, Pomona or something, and I had to go all the way out there to deliver. So I was like in the car and he's speeding at like 2 in the morning, which there's no cars, but I'm in labor. I'm like screaming and like holding on, and I'm like slow down, like you're doing almost 90, and he's yelling at me like, don't you want to get there? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to have the babies in the car. Like, it hurt, but he got me there. And we couldn't, he never been to the hospital, or you know, he's been like a few times, but he didn't know where to go for the labor and delivery. So he like pulled up and like dropped me off real quick so I could like walk to the door. And I'm like walking and I'm in pain and I'm hunched over and I could barely walk into the hospital, because at this point it was literally like 2 minutes apart. It was a minute to 2 minutes apart. And granted, I went in that state like the day earlier at like 4 o'clock and I was fine, nothing. Everything was okay. So fast forward a few hours, it's like 2 in the morning. They're every minute to 2 minutes apart. They get me in there. They're like, yeah, you're in labor. We gotta prep you for an emergency C-section. Let's go. Labor contractions are so painful. You know, your whole stomach and everything is squeezing together. And it actually caused me to throw up. And I was more sad that I threw up my food because like it was fun. So yeah. So by the time I got there, they got me changed. They checked me. I was already 7.5 centimeters dilated. So I was already basically there to start delivering these babies naturally. So they're like, if you would have waited any longer, you would have had these kids like at your place. So I was like, ugh. So they prep me, they take me in. The way that a C-section delivery works, and I don't know if this is at all hospitals, but for the one that I was at specifically, they took me in first, and Ruben had to stay out in the waiting room or the front room because he had to change into his like scrubs or outfit. They took me in, and they make you bend over, and they make you bend over. In between every contraction, they wait, and then they have to fill down your spine in between each spine or each I don't know what it's called. So yeah, they have to fill between your spine and find like a space or a gap. And what they do is they prick you with the needle. My specific doctor pricked me with a spine block. So once he did that, because he had a hard time because my contractions were like every 30 seconds at that point, I kept like tightening up, and he was like, you need to stop moving, you need to stop moving. And I'm like, trust me, I don't want to be going through this. But you know what? That is something I signed up for. I can't complain because that's what I signed up for. I signed up to have these babies. I signed up to go through labor. And I can't complain. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you signed up or not. It doesn't matter if this was a natural or planned or however of a pregnancy. It hurts. He finally got it in, and then I sat there and I was just like, you know, I'm feeling my leg. I was like, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't think it worked. He's like, trust me, you'll feel it. Lay back. And I'm like, what do you mean? So the nurse helps lean me back, and that's when I felt it, because I couldn't lift my feet up. So, and here we go. Here comes the moment of everything. So once they lay me down onto the bed, it is heated, and there's all these lights. Like when I film, I have like lights around me, but there was like a bunch of lights, and I'm laying on my back. They had me hooked up with all these things, my IVs and stuff, and they finally bring Ruben in, and he walks in from like behind me, and he's only allowed to be at my head, and they have this sheet up, and it was like a blue one all the way around. and I could feel like pressure, but I couldn't necessarily feel what they were doing. And the doctors were talking and stuff. And then regardless, like I was panicking, I was freaking out, and I was just like I want to make it home. Like all I could think about is I want to make it home to my daughter. I want to make it home to my daughter. I want to make it home to my family. I never had surgery before, so I was like, I don't want to die. Like I don't want this to be it. So I was just like focusing on my daughter and like her laugh and her smile, and I was just like, that's who I want to go home to. Like I was holding his hand, and I was freaking out. And right on the other side of me was my heart rate monitor. So I kept looking up, and like you could see it rising and then lowering, rising and lowering. So the doctor was just the anesthesiologist or whoever it was just like, hey, you need to relax. And I'm like, do you not know what they're doing to me down there? Like I can't relax. And then I felt it. Then I felt the pressing on my stomach. And if you've ever had a C-section, you know that's fairly common. They have to press on the stomach to help slide the baby out. And then they either will reach up inside of you and pull the baby out, or they will stretch you open and remove the baby. Don't know how it happened pertaining to two, but I just felt multiple pushing and stretching and pulling, and I was like crying. I was like, it hurt so bad. Like I was trying to calm down. My heart rate was like shooting up. I couldn't stand it. And then like I felt this relief, and then they took out the first baby, and they were like, do you want to see the babies? And I was like, no. Like I wasn't trying to be rude. I wanted them to just hurry up. Like I just needed to know that I was gonna be okay. Obviously they made it out. That one made it out. It was the girl. The girl was born first. She was out. She was safe. And then I could feel them tugging and pulling, and like I was like yanking on the table, and I feel like this pull, and then a drop where like the baby like slipped back in, I guess, and like it hurt. Like I can't even explain the amount of pain that it was. And then I feel the pull again, and then this relief. And then I can hear the little sounds of the baby, and I knew that the boy, the second one was a boy, had made it out, and he was okay. And you know, they were asking me if I wanted to see the babies now that they were out, and they were cleaning and sewing me back up. And I said no. And this is why. I feel like when the babies first come out, they look for that first moment of comfort, that first skin-to-skin contact, that moment of like hearing the voice that they've been hearing while in utero, you know, as their comfort. And I wanted to provide that for them, but you know what? That wasn't my right to do that. So I said, no, I don't want to hold the babies. The parents, the IPs were on their way to the hospital, because when I finally got to the hospital, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Once I got into the delivery room, or the operating room, I remember because the clock was like off to my side, and I was looking at it. It was 3:15. Once all said and done was all done, the babies were born at 3:30 in the morning. So the parents obviously had to like wake up and like drive all the way from where they were staying in Pasadena. Once they came in, they were just like, hey, do you want to see the babies now? Because I wanted the babies to have their first interaction with the parents. I wanted that to be their first initial moment. And once the parents had already had that, they came in and asked me if, you know, if I wanted to see them. And I was like, yes, you know, of course. And they rolled them into the room, and you know, it was a bittersweet moment. And people ask me all the time, Ray, how do you go into surrogacy and not get attached? Like, I could never do it. I would be too attached. Well, you know what? That's you. And I respect that. At least you're being honest. But with me, I went into it way beforehand knowing, like, these aren't my babies. No way am I related to these babies. 2, I met the parents. I knew what kind of people they were, how sweet they were, how much it meant to them. So I knew that every time I give them an update on how their babies were doing, how excited they would get, I couldn't wait for them to have their babies. I couldn't wait for them. They really wanted me to get walking, so I started walking, and I was able to walk to the room where the parents and the babies were staying, and I saw them. They were so beautiful. The dad was so happy, and he was like holding his son, and the mom was just they had the mom's mom there, so the grandma was holding the girl, and we were just looking at them. So they asked me if I wanted to hold the babies, and at this point I said yes. Like, I want to hold them. Like, it would mean everything to me. So I got to hold them. I looked like a wreck, but I will go ahead and insert the photos of me holding the little boy and the little girl here, just so you guys can see, you know, how adorable they were. And so I got to hold them for a little bit. Because they were considered preemie, they had to stay in the hospital for at least a month to be evaluated. And even then they had to stay just because they had to wait for the birth certificate and the passports for the babies to be transported so they could fly back to China. And you have to wait, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks anyways for a newborn to fly. So, you know, they stayed for about a good month and a half after the babies were born. I went home, I got to recover for a while. It was from having them, leaving the babies, going home, recovering. I did so good. But once they had left and I had realized like I had missed saying goodbye to them, I hit a really bad depression. Like, I was really, really, really depressed. And luckily during my pregnancy, you know, Ruben kept telling me like, look, when you have these babies, you're gonna hit a depression, you're gonna get sad, you're gonna want to care for something, you're gonna need that distraction. And I was like, well, I have Mia, that's fine. He's like, yeah, but that's different. Mia doesn't need you like a newborn baby would need you. You need that constant mothering to give. So he had told me few months before I had the babies to go get a dog. Get a dog, it'll help you. I was like, no. He's like, get a dog. So I was like, fine. So I went, found the dog. And this is my baby now. He's my man. So once I got him, like, it helped a lot. But when I hit the depression, I turned to my dog and I really like lashed myself to him, because it's hard to realize like I'll never see those babies again, and it sucked. So luckily in our contract we agreed upon that even after the babies had gone back, that I was still to receive like pictures and messages from the family so I could see how the babies are doing. And they sent me a lot of photos, so I will go ahead and insert those photos of them here so you could see the boy and the girl, how much they've grown, and they're so beautiful, and I'm so thankful that I got to experience it. You know, being a surrogate is so much more than just having a baby. You're creating a family for somebody that would never otherwise been able to have a family. You're providing life that could never exist without your help. You know, you never know who's struggling. So when people are always talking about like, oh, I'm pregnant, oh, I just had a baby, there's always somebody that's quietly standing by, you know, happy for you, but they know that it can't happen for them. And it's so overlooked, and it's not talked about enough. And I'm glad that I was able to help somebody and help a family that really, really deserved it. You know, surrogacy means more to me than just being pregnant. It means helping others. It means creating families. It means love. It means strength and being strong and a good person and having a good mindset and being healthy, and, you know, understanding that what we women can do can be easily taken for granted, and not every woman can have babies, and it's something that should be talked about more. It should be more of a reason to, you know, come together and help others. There's no other satisfaction in the world than looking at your own kid and being like, yeah, I made that, that's my baby. But there's so much more of a feeling inside of you when you get to look at a family and you're just like, I did that. I helped them. I gave them something they could never have done without me. And it makes you feel good. And to see them love their baby and hold them and kiss them and show them off it's the best. It's literally the best feeling in the world. I hope that maybe one day in the future I can do it again, but I'm for sure really happy that I got the chance to do it while I was still young. And there's a lot of people out there that are interested in it, and I'm telling you now, go for it, do it. Like, why wait? You know, it's such an amazing experience, and you'll really change somebody's life. You'll really do something for somebody that is it's priceless. Like, it's amazing. And I think that if I could honestly tell people to just do it and stuff, I would. I'll give you the phone numbers, the list, the names. I'll give you everything you need to help you get started. But don't not do it because of uncertainty. Still reach out, still ask questions, still, you know, talk to somebody, because it's worth trying to get information on. It's worth looking into, because it changes your life. It makes you look at your own life differently, your kids differently. It makes you just look at everything in a more positive light. And for that, I'm truly thankful. And I'm grateful for everything that I went through. You know, my before body was one thing. My pregnancy body is another. And you know, I don't care that my after body is this. Because you know what? I've already had my daughter and I had twins. And my body is my body. It's going to get beat up and used anyways. But the fact that I could provide life with it is something that I'll never apologize for. And I'm thankful for everything I've gone through. And if anybody is interested in being a surrogate, do it. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'd love to answer any questions that I didn't get to answer in this video. I tried to touch base on everything. Usually about 2 months after you have the baby, everything with you and the agency is cut off. It's done. You get paid out in your compensation, and then you go about your way. You know, you go back to your life. You know, there's nothing more after that. So, yeah, that is my experience. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And if I could do it again, I would. But for now, I'm going to just enjoy my life, enjoy my family, have another one of my own kids soon, hopefully. And yeah, go from there. So, from the bottom of my heart, and from Arthur's heart, we love you. Thank you for watching this really, really long video of me just talking. So if you made it all the way through, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Comment down below any questions that you still have, or if you want me to get more in depth on any certain topic that I didn't really talk too much about during this video. Go ahead and just let me know. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I will be doing another video soon. So, alright. Love you all. Bye.